Can childhood predict the future? A journey from childhood to the future. Hello everyone. Today, let's explore an intriguing question. Do our childhood years truly shape who we become as adults? This isn't just a story about memories, it's about how we understand and overcome the imprints of the past to live a more fulfilling life. Join me on this journey. This article will take us through the following main points. First, childhood, especially the first 5 years, has a significant impact on how we form relationships later in life. Next, acknowledging psychological wounds from the past is a crucial step toward change. And finally, while we may not be able to change our core nature, we can absolutely change how we live and how we love. Now, let's dive into each section to understand more deeply how childhood affects our future. Imagine childhood as a book, with the first pages written by family, friends, and early experiences. These lines are not just memories, but beliefs, habits, and ways of viewing the world. I'm not someone who blames everything on parents, but we must admit that what we go through as children, from the way our parents love us to the struggles they face, shapes the path we take. Take the story of Maria. For example, she is the eldest of 4 children, growing up in a home where her parents carried wounds from their own childhoods. Her grandfather was an alcoholic. Her other grandfather was abusive. And her parents rushed into marriage at 19 when they found out they were expecting Maria. With a naturally loving and leadership-oriented personality, Maria quickly sensed her parents' sadness. By age 3, she was already trying to help, believing that if she could make her parents happy, everything would be better. But as she grew older, Maria became exhausted. She gave love and help constantly, but received very little in return. She became anxious, guarded, and found herself stuck in patterns of choosing the wrong people in relationships. When she began therapy, Maria realized that these patterns stemmed from her childhood. Though she didn't clearly remember her early years, she came to understand how deeply those experiences affected how she loves and how she is loved. Misconception about memory. Not remembering childhood doesn't mean it was bad. Now, let's clear up a common misunderstanding. If you don't remember your childhood, it must have been terrible. In truth, the first 5 years are a critical period that shapes how we bond with others. But most of us don't remember much from this time, and that's completely normal. Not remembering doesn't mean your childhood was full of trauma. Instead, your current emotions and behaviors, like anxiety, difficulty trusting others, or always needing to please, can offer clues about what happened. Think of it this way: childhood is not only about big events but also small moments, being comforted when you cried, or the warmth of a hug. If these were missing, we might unconsciously try to compensate as adults, sometimes in unhealthy ways. Misconception about happiness. No sad memories doesn't mean everything was great. Another common belief is that if you don't have bad memories, your childhood must have been wonderful. But reality isn't that simple. Sometimes, the hurt doesn't come from obvious events like being yelled at or abandoned. It comes from the invisible things: a lack of attention, comfort, or feeling unloved. A family can be financially stable, yet if emotional connection is lacking, the child can still grow up feeling empty. For instance, a child may not realize they missed out on hugs, praise, or being truly listened to. But as adults, they may constantly seek validation from others or struggle to trust in love. These emotional gaps can create unconscious patterns that lead us to repeatedly seek safety and affection in ineffective ways. Misconception about responsibility. Don't just blame your parents. Another misunderstanding is thinking all our relationship issues are our parents' fault. In reality, our parents are also products of their own childhoods. Patterns, both good and bad, are often passed down through generations. If we only focus on blaming, we may miss the chance to understand and change ourselves. Consider this. Feeling anger toward our parents for what they did is completely valid. But if we stop there, we can become stuck. Acknowledging pain is essential, but the next step is taking responsibility for ourselves. Ask yourself, how do I want to live differently? That's the key to breaking the cycle of old patterns. Misconception about causes. Understanding why isn't enough to change. Is it true that once we understand why we act the way we do, things will automatically change? Unfortunately, no. We are shaped by many factors: genetics, personality, life circumstances, and family struggles. A specific event, like losing a loved one or growing up in poverty, can help us understand ourselves better, but understanding alone isn't enough. For example, if Maria realizes she keeps choosing people who need help because she used to try to please her parents, that's a big step. But to truly change, she must work through her emotions, try new ways of loving, and learn to set boundaries. Understanding the past helps us forgive ourselves and others. But only action creates real transformation. Misconception about memory. You don't need to remember everything to heal. Some people believe that in order to heal, they must dig up every childhood memory. But the truth is, you don't need to recall every detail to begin healing. Just look at who you are today, how you react in relationships, what triggers your anxiety or hurt. These are all windows into your past. From birth, we all seek attachment to feel safe. If the family environment wasn't stable, we found ways to adapt. Some children became overly obedient to be loved. Others withdrew to protect themselves. Maria, for example, chose to take care of others to feel safe. These survival decisions, though unconscious, can become patterns that govern our adult lives. Once we recognize them, we can begin to change, even without remembering every detail. Final misconception. We can change how we live, even if not who we are. Finally, let's talk about a common belief: people can't change. The truth is, we can't change our core traits, our personality, talents, or inherent weaknesses, but we can absolutely change how we use them. If childhood forced us to hide our sensitivity, joy, or creativity in order to be accepted, then adulthood is our chance to reclaim and nurture those parts of ourselves. For example, if you became overly independent to protect yourself, you can learn to open up and trust others. If you cared for others to the point of exhaustion, like Maria, you can learn to love yourself and set boundaries. Change doesn't mean becoming someone else. It means living more authentically, free from the old patterns that once controlled us. Maria's journey shows us that while childhood can shape us, it doesn't define us. By facing ourselves, acknowledging our wounds, and trying new ways of living, we can build healthier relationships and a more meaningful life. Childhood is the starting point, but the future is in our hands. Let's begin today.